Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Thanks for your patience. We're running a little bit behind today. It must be the sunny weather, right? Everybody's
It's
busy,
the
which is
sun.
great. Um, Perfect. So I think we've got everybody situated. Thanks, you guys. Okay, cool. Well, let's go ahead and just dig right in, you guys. So I'm Shannon Hall. I'm the operations manager with Best Choice. I'm joined today with Stacy Whalen and Lisa Schultz from Chicago Title. So we have an excellent specialist here that can kind of help us and help us from the title perspective, because ultimately a lot of these scammers end up on their plate. So we've got a very fun topic tonight, or should I say not so fun. The frauds, the scams, the spammers, you name it, we've seen it. They're getting good. They're getting so good, you guys. And so as agents, we want to make sure that we are protecting our clients' assets, their investments. And in many cases, we're kind of the first eyes on this. So we've got some fun scenarios. Stacy, Lisa, I think we're starting off with some of your content. So I'm just going to go ahead and Vanna White a little bit, but we do have some stories for you guys. So you can kind of keep this in mind as you are working with your own clients as well.
Awesome. Absolutely. Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming in when you really want to be in the water, right? So really quickly, let's just look at the facts. So nationally, 21% of title claims throughout the United States, and this is from the American Land Title Association, have some sort of fraud with it. We're looking at $4.4 billion in losses. And there's been a 44% increase in fraud in the title industry. Bulk of that is forgeries and IDs, right? What do you think?
Forgeries, IDs, and misrepresentation of sellers.
Yep, a lot of misrepresentation. So the other thing that I wanted to show you is a little red arrow. 31% of our forgery and title claims, or I should say our claims due to fraud, have increased, and the loss is more than $50,000. So we'll have some losses, but then we get these big hurting losses like over 50 grand. Just as a hint for you guys, general daily fraud, this is your credit cards, your identity theft, all these things that we talk about. 15 billion login credentials are for sale on the dark web. So we just all need to plan on our stuff being for sale. $23 billion in losses in the US and 485.6 billion worldwide. Nice typo, Lisa Schultz. 31% of it is phishing. Okay. So how do we deal with that in escrow? Next one. Here
I
is
this around. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the news.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all over the news. These people are not shocked when we bring this up. I went on an appointment this weekend and I'm like, we are protecting your asset. Wire fraud is a big deal. And this is why. I mean, these are the baddies that are out there.
Yeah. This was just a Google of all of these different things. You guys can read it. Southern California lost $160,000 in their down payment. And this is all the same thing. Somehow their information from their transaction got intercepted by a bad person. And that bad person forwarded them wire instructions. And these wire instructions, they can portray, the bad people can portray themselves as transaction coordinators, which we've had happen here locally. Notaries, which we've got an example of. They will imitate the broker and they will just go to Google Images and take the logo. So really kind of look at that kind of stuff. What other ways?
They do represent themselves as title and escrow as well. We have had those instances. I mean, it's one of the reasons that we are very adamant about sending wire instructions directly to the party that's wiring the funds. So we cannot send those instructions via an agent or a lender representative or even an investment brokerage. They have to go directly to the person that's sending the money. And then we ask that they call us back to verify those instructions before they send the money. You'd be surprised at how many people do not do that. And they just get our instructions and they wire out And they disregard the fact that they need to call and make sure what we sent is what they received.
Mhm. So, here's something that just happened with one of my clients who's a lender. The owners who bought a house a year ago, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but this is what essentially happened. A year ago, they closed on their home and they had a loan. A call came in from supposedly this loan company that said that their escrow balance was low. And for the next couple months, they would need to be sending $300 a month directly to this link or this company, and then it would catch up. So the homeowners felt like this was a little bit fishy. They called their lender and said, hey, have you ever heard that we have to pay a balance separately if our escrow account drops? And he goes, no, don't even do it. They were legitimate. They knew their loan. They knew their information. They knew their address. And they called me and they were like, why? How do these people know that? And unfortunately, you guys, it's all public record. Here's a fun one that came from our title manager. And this is the extent that they will go. This was in New York. You can Google it. Man gets 13 years dressing as his mother to get his house. So the mom deeded the property to her son. The son could not keep his payments up, and then it was sold at foreclosure. The son then turned around and sued the foreclosure, the trustee, because they thought that mom was dead, which mom had passed away. So he impersonated his mom and started a process, a claim against the trustee who did the foreclosure, stating that they didn't give proper notice in the foreclosure. He currently was going after a $2.2 million property in New York. And while he was doing that, he also thought it would be a great idea to continue getting her Social Security benefits for the 2 years. So this man got caught by the investigators because the investigators Google searched the cemetery plot of the passed away lady, and then they arrested him. So got 13 years for the $44,000 in trying to fraud as grandma. And there is a picture of the man impersonating his mother at the bank. Isn't that fun?
That's a funny one.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
This is one, Lisa actually had this one on her list to share tonight as well. And I'd say this one's very common in areas that not high density areas a lot of the time. We're seeing a lot of this out in these outlying areas where there's a lot of land for sale. So especially when you're working with land, it's not exclusive to that type of situation. What are these fraudsters after? They're after a non-refundable earnest money. So we had one that was in Tacoma recently, fairly recently, I should say, but this is not exclusive to that area. We've seen this in other areas as well, where our listing agent thought she was listing the home or listing the land, the little plot of land. They go out to the property, looks good. Seller reached out to her directly through email, through text message. They were communicating. They signed the contract through DocuSign. They were able to get a buyer after the listing agent put photos on, did all the marketing around it. They were able to find a buyer for it, executed the contract. Seller was asking for earnest money to be non-refundable, which the buyer was willing to do. Around this stage of the game, I would say that our listing agent got a little bit fishy between what they had to see and what escrow had to see at this point. And we were able to send an email to the owner that we were working with. And then also we had a contact that we were pulling from tax records. We did some reverse prospect, trying to figure out who this person is, and found another email for him and identified that this was a fraudulent situation because the actual owner reached out and said, I'm not actually trying to sell this piece of property. I don't have email. Or I don't have a phone number. That's not my phone number. I'm not trying to sell this. This must be fraud. So this comes up from time to time with land, but they're after the non-refundable earnest money because that will get released. And so that's what they're after.
So with that, you guys, you know, if you guys as listing agents or buyer's agents have not met your client, let escrow know. We've got systems that we can do some verification on them. Now, not all title and escrow companies may have these systems. Chicago Title has a system, and Stacy will go a little bit more into those. But we also have some back end systems where we can kind of track these people and find out where their IP address is. And Stacy has a great story on that one.
Oh, your guys'
Stacy,
mail
this
away
is yours.
scam. Yeah.
So this one here was actually a particular transaction that I was personally involved in. One of my listing agents received a referral from their office. All the communication was done via text and email. All the paperwork, of course, signed by them to sign. Once the transaction was underway, there was a buyer. It was also vacant land, coincidentally. We sent all opening documents out, and this was prior to our fraud prevention system. So just keep that in mind. So we sent our opening documents out. So the seller answered the questions. He provided a social security number. He provided a driver's license. He had an address that was local to it. Once we started getting into it, the name he was utilizing was a very common name, so he had to complete a statement of information to clear title. Once he did that, the information that came back was contradictory to the information he had put on his opening package, which was a red flag for us. So once we started digging deeper, you get that gut feeling. We started kind of digging around, and at this point, we're drafting closing documents because it was a quick cash sale. And upon letting him know that we were ready to schedule his signing appointment, he kept asking for a mail away closing. And we're like, that is not a thing in the state of Washington. He's like, and he would repeat back and says, well, I can only do a mail away closing. I'm really busy. And I said, well, we have electronic notaries. We can arrange for a notary, the standard protocol. And he had agreed to the electronic notary and then ghosted the notary at the time of the signing, which then really made us skeptical. So we started really digging, and we got the idea to pull the public records and look and see if there was any documentation that had the seller's signature, because we had the ID that he was being used. And we discovered that not only was it fraudulent, the signatures on his ID and the documents that were of record did not match. The minute we started calling saying, hey, we really need to get some more identifying information, he all of a sudden ghosted us. His email disappeared, his phone number disappeared, the agent couldn't get get a hold of him. And then a couple of weeks later, the actual true seller called and said, I got this letter, it went to my rental property. And the tenant gave it to me. Please tell me you didn't complete the sale. And I said, no, we stopped because we determined it was fraudulent. And so because of the efforts that we had put into it, and we were able to thankfully stop the transaction from going through.
Any questions so far?
Yeah, we've got some simple ones. I figured I'd throw this in there because I feel like these come up all the time. The gift card scams, I feel like this is like a warm up too. It's like if you get a text message like this says, hi, this is Rachelle, or hi, this is Shannon, are you available? Immediately, your ticker should kind of say, is this actually Rachelle? It's a different number. This could be a family member or friend. This comes up all the time for people right now. My mom gets stuff like this. Kind of the same ilk. Everybody gets the US Postal Service. You've got a package, you have to click the link in order to verify that it's coming. Those types of things I would identify as a potential scam as well. They're simple ones, but they're irritating. And I think it's kind of sets the understanding when you're working with clients that things like that, but on a much, much larger scale. I have a couple other ones I was going to throw through here. So this one was interesting. This was a fraudulent seller, and it looks good, guys. It looks good. This is how they're reaching out to us as agents. This is one where I hope this email finds you well. I'm reaching out to inquire about your services as a real estate agent. with regards to selling a lot. Haha. Okay, we got another vacant lot we're dealing with. He's got the lot number, he's got the location, he's reaching out to us. I mean, this is how they're getting a hold of us. They're finding our information online. And it, unfortunately, in our industry, it's kind of the risk of putting ourselves out there is that our information is very easily attainable. And so we're getting things like this. This particular situation was fraud as we dug through it. But this is an example of what you might get in your email box, something like that. And it's just like, once you get this, send this to title and escrow, I would say, and have them do their checks before you really start going down the rabbit hole and wasting your time. Another one we got, kind of on the flip side, this was a fraudulent buyer. What do they have to gain out of this? They don't have necessarily equity in this situation. I would say this particular buyer had nothing to gain other than to waste our time. So this particular situation, we're representing the seller. This is a $14 million property up in Ponderay County in Washington. And it's a big, beautiful ranch. Cody Abbott listed the property and he was like, please share. Like, these are the types of people that I'm dealing with this type of property. Very high luxury home. So this particular person reached out to him. He gave him proof of funds. He gave him a passport photo. He gave him everything, giving all sorts of information. At the end of the day, he had nothing to gain other than to waste Cody's time on this situation. So Cody has a very good relationship with title and escrow as a result, because he's vetting a lot of these international buyers and sellers. So that way he's not wasting his seller's time to present offers that are truly not legitimate.
Well, and some of these buyers, these prospective buyers, guys, I didn't even include this one. Some of them are pulling documents and trying to forge and forging quitclaim deeds. They're not as prevalent here, but in other states, because we have excise tax you have to pay. So that detours some theft and fraud. But these could be people who are trying to get more information about the property, number one, try to sell it to another out-of-country buyer by fraudulently transferring deeds. We've had that happen before. There's a couple stories I've got that aren't in the slide. So the buyers are just as evil as the sellers.
Yep. This was one of yours, I think, Lise.
Yeah, this came from a text. I do like that you kept my little unhappy face. So this was texted to a buyer about a week after we opened escrow, and it said, "Hi, this is Jane. We allow you the convenience of wiring your down payment early to save time and receive a discount on your escrow and notary fees. Please click this link." Number one, notaries will never have the wire information unless they're carrying it with them. And sometimes we're pretty particular on that. Our notaries are vetted. And number two, you don't get discounts for wiring early ever with any title and escrow company that I know of. And I've also had people impersonate TCs where they said, "Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm Shannon's transaction coordinator. I'll be handling all of your information. I'll be responsible for collecting your earnest money. I'll be responsible for collecting your down payment. And any questions you have, you can go to me." And that was the listing agent's TC, supposedly. That was to the buyer. So the buyer called the buyer's agent. Of course, the buyer's agent was pretty hot that the listing agent's team was calling them. And they realized that the listing agent didn't have a TC.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Here's one that's live right now. We just got this last week. One spouse wants to sell the home. They live in South America. They have been getting some weird notices about certain things, and they suspect the other has signed their name to certain mortgages and modifications. They've reached out to a broker. This broker opened title. This is what we saw last week. We found 3 deeds of trust and 3 loan modifications. And what caught my closer's eye is how different all of the signatures look in a matter of several years. So we asked the spouse who is questioning this, "Have you had any health issues that would change your signature?" And this is what we've got. Interesting enough, same notary, and the notary, when they put in your title, because sometimes they want the title of the notary, they put sales and marketing specialist, but they're not with the title company. So it could be just a random notary. So they bought it in 2009. They did it in 2022. If we suspect fraud, the next slide, I think, shows how bad it is. They bought it for $252. These are all the different loan modifications. And at the bottom, if it's okay, we're looking at about $334,000 worth of debt from the original 252. So they haven't had any principal reduction. They've actually added another $100,000 worth of debt. If we're on the worst case scenario, if they got another loan in 2022 for 227 and never closed out the 2009 loan, this property is well over $500,000 in debt. And people go, how does this happen? How does somebody be able to do this? As our equities have jumped, they keep going back to the bank with a hardship notice. And so what we did was you order preliminary title, you click the hyperlink, set up pre-escrow to get payoffs, and have a conversation with all parties and ask escrow, do you see anything that's questionable about this? Do you have anything to add on that?
No, but it's real, well, a little. So, every time there's a loan modification, for most parts of this point, legitimate loans are actually securing separate deeds of trust if it's being done legitimate. There are instances in this case where the fraud could have been, could have occurred. There are lenders out there that do what's called a soft pull, where they don't do a true title search, and they look at the equity versus what is the debt on the property, and that allows for lenders to be able to come in and take advantage of fraudulent info.
And we have we have 6 different banks where one bank started the loan, then they moved it, the note moved to another bank, then it went to another servicer and another servicer. And when you're moving that quickly, sometimes the file didn't catch up with the request and they're running on old information, and some modifications, everybody, may not be recorded. Sometimes we don't know that there's a modification until we get a payoff.
Jeez.
So if you're questioning this, I would immediately order preliminary title, call your escrow and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. How can you help me? And the escrow company will work with you. We order pre-escrow. We will try to work with our identification fraud prevention for you and try to get down to the bottom of what's really going on. In these circumstances, if there was fraudulent paperwork, if those modifications and if those new loans had title insurance, they could truly file a claim against the title insurance company for those losses if they didn't do their job well.
Ah,
Okay. All right. So in this particular situation, we now have a fraud prevention system entitled MITA. So for those of you who haven't experienced it, what happens is if there is a property that is non-owner occupied, such as vacant land, an investment property, regardless of how title is held, whether it's a LLC, whether it's an individual, whether it's an estate, if it is a non-owner occupied property, you actually contact the sellers, and we send out a letter, an absentee owner letter, and that letter goes to the address of record, which is really gained from the county records where their taxes go. Your seller will get a letter, and say it's a PO box, say it's their current property. If they get that letter, most of the time the seller directs the sellers to contact escrow. Most of the time the sellers will contact escrow and say, hey, I got this letter, I'm verifying I am selling the property. And they're sent out by UPS. It's the ones that come back in UPS that are undeliverable that we are extremely concerned, because that means it didn't reach a person and we immediately wrote the MyTech. What the MyTech looks like is, most of the time I encourage people to do it by text, but it can be done on the computer as well. What it looks like is, the sellers will receive a link. They have to have a valid ID, meaning non-expired. They will be asked to take a selfie. It'll ask them to submit it. And then after that, they have to take a picture of their ID front and back. It is then submitted. And it does a facial recognition between the selfie and the picture and the ID, and then it confirms that the ID is valid. It's not fraudulent. And that has helped us tremendously in beating out, because I can tell you that people who are trying to commit fraud they do not want to complete.
Their IDs aren't that good.
Their IDs are not that good. With that being said, I personally, and I know the closers here in Chicago Title, we contact sellers, walk them through the process. There are a few instances that sellers struggle with it, and that's usually our elderly community. And we do have a way to assist them. If they're local to a branch, they're welcome to come in and can help them through the process. Some of the notaries are versed in it, and they can help them. But most of the time, there's also a friend or family member that's a little bit more tech savvy, that we can set them up with, that can help them with that process. But it is a process that has been proven to really help us in fraud prevention.
And the elderly is who they prey on.
Yep, absolutely.
No loans.
Any questions on the process?
Yeah, and that works for, I got a comment. This works for buyers, sellers.
It
Yeah.
worked for whoever gets the link. So if we suspect, not very often that, I mean, if we're going through a loan process, I mean, a cash transaction customarily, we have them do like a DocuSign. We can vet them if there's suspicion, but mostly this is for sellers, like I said, for the non-owner occupied kind of situation.
Okay. Perfect. So as agents, what we can do is get as much information as possible. Immediately you should be on high alert if you're working with someone that you have never met in person. Friends, family, I mean, I would say was the bulk majority of our business, our referrals, friends and family. But outside of that, if you've never met the person before and they've reached out to you via email or text message or even a phone call, if you've never met them, I would be on high alert and make sure you verify and get more information. You would agree with that too, I'm sure, Lisa and Stacy. Is find an opportunity to meet with them. Hey, let's meet for coffee, or like, hey, let's go through the paperwork together in person. And if they get weird about it, then I would say that's a red flag for you. You had some tips on here. I think this is from Stacy. Mail copies of the listing agreement to the addresses where the seller told you to send it, in addition to what's on tax record. Yeah, that's a great tip. If you're worried about, what does it say? If you're worried, ask your escrow company to use their verification system, which you just described, Stacy. So have a good friend in title and escrow is what I can tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to DM somebody on Facebook. If, I know that if it's a common name, it's really hard to know it's not the right person, but people are on social media. So ask them if they've got a social media link. You want to have them look at your social posts as if who they say they are, right? But yeah, I don't know if I got this, Shannon. Did I tell you guys about my buyer last week who was awesome?
No.
Okay. So really quickly, it was on your desk. No, it's on another person's desk. Buyer calls me up because my name's on the contract, and he says, I need my earnest money wire instructions. I referred him to the closing agent because I don't have them, you guys. He got the wiring instructions. He got my information from his agent. So he then replied to me. We spoke in the morning. He was getting ready to wire, and he called me back and he goes, Lisa, you have given me the people that I'm supposed to wire to, and I want you to do this for me. Make sure that you are who you say you are. I have given your closer a 4-digit code, and I want you to ask that closer to send it to you and plug it in. So I am the closer, and I said, did you get a 4-digit code from Matt? He goes, yeah, I did. It was kind of weird. He told me to give it to you, so it's right here. And I did it. He goes, okay, great. I'm ready for my wire. So that buyer works in the international wire systems on insurance. So the great news is if you want to be clever and try to figure this out, create a passcode that your buyer has to give to us. And you say, I want my buyer to say Jackrabbit in his email or her email. And the closer can do that so that you all know you're talking to the right people, because they do. They impersonate the closing assistants. They may say they're the opening desk. They may say they're the setup desk. They may say they're, so it's not a bad idea, but really use the authentication and the secure portals of escrow. That's why we have them.
Yeah. I think also that, I mean, that buyer's incredibly savvy, which is great and very rare to see. But as much as I would say most people get irritated by multi-factor authentication, the MFAs, this is why we have them, is because as technology improves, it gets improved for also our fraudsters out there. So unfortunately, it's kind of the catch-22. We have to be adapting just as swiftly as they are.
And I'm positive on AI, but AI is making it a lot harder because of the verification of identity. And it has so much information on how to impersonate somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, just even how we look too, with all the filters and things like that too. It's the one that we got that I explained, he provided all the stuff. At first glance, it looks legit, so you have to dig a little bit deeper on some of these instead of getting too excited about a $14 million sale.
Right, right.
So thank you, Lisa, and Stacy, so much. Their information is here on the screen. I know we're just after 6 o'clock. We try and keep it to 30 minutes. It always goes by super fast, but thank you so much. If you're having a situation like this, I would certainly reach out to them, and just make sure you've got a friend in title and escrow, because that's how we can avoid some of these really unfortunate circumstances. One quick mention I want to share here on the screen as well. So in Idaho, they don't necessarily have the Washington Realtors wire fraud form like we do here. But in Idaho, for those of you that are licensed in Idaho, we do have a wire fraud form that we put together that is in Form Simplicity, so you guys can use that as well. Have conversations early with your clients about wiring fraud. They're good. These spammers are good. They're changing zeros to O's and changing the font case. They're getting really good, and they'll impersonate like Lisa's describing. So,
and check your timestamps.
yeah.
Are they coming out of another country? Are you getting opening instructions at 2 a.m. in the morning from your client, at your clients? Is it CTT at something? Or is it best choice at something? It's the magic is in the email address a lot.
Yeah, I know. Wire fraud for a long time was not covered under errors and omissions insurance. It's just now starting to be included in some policies. So, I mean, that's good news for us in our industry. We have never had a claim on wire fraud, knock on wood, right, to date. And it's because our agents are very careful and having conversations about wire fraud specifically early. It's embedded in our contracts, guys. We want to make sure we have those the conversations early. Any questions from the crew? It looks like we had a quick comment, couple of them. It looks like someone went through the gift card fraud. I'm sorry, guys. That's not so fun. And then Stacy, apparently you and Candace are twinning.
We have the same shirt on today. Stacy was in my closet this morning.
There you go. We had the same thought. Yep.
I did want to add one thing before we all break.
Sure, go for it.
One of the key things is for seller proceeds, when sellers opt for a wire transfer, it is imperative that sellers realize that we are going to do a two-part authentication. Not only do we receive their information, which they complete, and it could be handwritten completion when they're signing in person, it could be digital if they do DocuSign or with an e-notary. But as an extra level of security, escrow will always 100% call that seller to re-verify the information. As a level of fraud protection, but also for this a peace of mind, because we all know that, I'm guilty of it. I know my my routing number and my account number by heart. But heaven forbid that I transpose a number because, you know, I'm sitting in a signing and I'm distracted and I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. Because we have caught so many times, and if that money goes to another account, it's really difficult to get it back. So I would say if you're working with sellers, just let them know that title and escrow across the board should be calling them to verify those instructions to make sure the funds get to their account safely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Stacy.
You're
And
welcome.
Lisa, to you as well. Thanks, you guys.